First of all, I'd like to open the November 21st meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission. We'll take roll call. Ken,
Yes,
and I did make you co-host, Ken.
thank you.
Haley, I don't see yet. Jim will be late. Paul,
Yes, here.
Peter.
Here.
Teresa.
Yeah,
All right. First up is the approval of the minutes from November 8th.
I move that they be approved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Ken,
I'll abstain. I wasn't present.
okay, Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes,
and I also vote yes. All right. I do want to announce that DEP 313634, 117 New Salem Street has been postponed per the applicant request. Again, it's 117 New Salem Street has been postponed to December 5th per the applicant's request. If there's
and you
anybody
see that
who wants to
Haley
dis-
joined, Bob?
Yes, oh yeah, I see. Hello, Haley.
Hello.
All right, our next hearing is until 7:30, so we do have some time to take care of some old business and new business. Let's see. We've got a requested certificate of compliance for 2 Clyde Court. DP 313613. Elaine, have you visited that property?
Yes, I have. I've been tracking that property. They've just finished with the, they've put in the as-built plan. The only thing that was left was the plantings. They finished with a whole series of plantings of native species. I would recommend that a certificate of compliance issue.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that?
I make
So
a motion.
Elaine, are you saying that that they're replacing those non-native plants that they tried to grow in a wetland with something more appropriate now?
Yeah, the
Okay,
thing,
good.
yes.
Good. I drive by it a lot.
Yeah,
That's
so do
correct.
I. Yeah, we saw what they planted there, boy.
It was
It was not native.
no Celadoro daylilies and you know, a lot of other very nice garden plants that went brown as soon as they sat in water for a few weeks. So, okay, that sounds good then.
All right, so there was a motion. Did I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion or further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor. Ken,
Yes,
Haley,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes,
and I also vote yes. All right. We have a couple of tree removal requests. 391 Vernon Street. We did briefly talk about this last time, and we have received the arborist letter. I'm just looking for the email. Circle. Anybody have that one handy?
yeah, I'm looking for it too.
Okay.
Hold on. It was late in the day, I thought. Hold on, maybe not.
Yeah, I've got it from Pete's tree, right? You want me to share it?
Yeah, please do, Paul.
There you go.
Yeah, we got it. We can see that. Thank you.
Okay.
I just forwarded it to you again too, Bob.
Yeah, I've got it.
I
in,
presume that means base rot.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
it could be bad rot.
Could be that too. And it's leaning towards the house. I would.
Yeah, we did see the pictures last time that Elaine had forwarded to us.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing the hole in the ground where and the roots were kind of not holding it in anymore. And it was leaning quite a bit. Elaine, do you recall seeing this property?
I do. I sent you the photos.
Yeah.
So
Was
anything
that was that the same tree, just like V'd, or was it like a separate tree next to it? Remember how
I'm looking back at my notes. I think it's all just one tree. You have to forgive me. I see a lot of trees.
I know. We got a lot of pictures, a lot of emails.
Hard to tell them apart. If you could put the picture up, I might remember the tree.
Did those photos go
Stop
to everyone or
sharing
just
this
Bob?
unless we need it up any longer.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Paul.
Okay, let me see if I can find that.
It was probably around the time of the last meeting. November 8th or a few days before. Also looking. There's a letter.
I think I just found it. Let me forward this.
Do you want to just share it?
Maybe. Let's see. How do I do that? Oh, there.
So click on the picture. And then go to the bottom where it says share. And just make sure you've selected the image.
Okay, I think. Is that working?
Yes. There it is.
I think it's just, this guy. See, I knew once I saw the picture, I'd remember it. Yeah, this is the tree. I remember this guy. It's way in the backyard and it's about 10 feet away from the wetlands. And, the tree is leaning, as you can see the bottom, and it's pulling the roots out of the ground.
So that
But it's, as you can see from the crown is still healthy. Yeah, that's interesting. I think what has happened is it's got to be the same tree. It's one tree.
okay. So one side is that hole is actually showing looks like a dead trunk to the right of it. It's like pulled right out of the ground and snapped. And then the one leaning is the larger trunk on the left side of the picture, correct?
I think
That
it's
one,
the
yeah.
large one he wants to take out.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's one that's leaning, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
the leaning large tree.
so the other half is actually broken off and just snapped off and dead.
Oh,
Yeah.
that little one, the very
Oh, no.
small one,
No,
the one that
the
leans.
big chunk
the
there.
one he's got his hand on.
Nope.
No,
On the ground to the right, it looks like there's a trunk, or is that just roots coming up?
I think that's just roots coming out.
Oh,
no.
okay.
If that's roots from the big one, that's definitely a hazard.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely something else going on there too. It looks like, I don't know what.
You can't tell from that picture that it's bad rot or it's base rot.
Right, yes. I would go with base being the missing E
It's
at the
missing
end.
root connection on this side because of the rot, perhaps.
Yeah.
You could argue that base root is bad root.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
But the top of the tree looks fine, unfortunately. I
Yeah,
mean,
it does.
For now,
Yeah, it's still receiving nutrients. I don't think the problem is that the tree is dead. I think the problem is in a good gust of wind, it's the rest of the roots are going to give way.
yeah.
Mhm.
can we talk about our tree policy? Only because our tree policy says it has to be dead in order to be, I mean, it has to be, excuse me, if it's dead, it can be, there's no requirement that it be replaced, but it doesn't talk about diseased.
Right. We mentioned this last time.
Exactly.
I think I brought this exact
You
topic
did, you
up.
did.
The other, just also, just as a related thing, are there any other trees that are right nearby? In other words, is it a tree that, it matters to me, like if you're in a grove of, 5 trees and one of them, you take down one and the other allows the other 4 to grow.
Well, I tell you, he's got the house, the lawn, and then beyond the lawn, there is the border to the wetland and then the wetland. So beyond the lawn, there are a number of other trees, yes.
Okay.
Well, that tree is providing canopy, but would its loss have an impact?
I guess my question is, in 5 years, is the space that, is that going to provide room for the other trees to grow in?
Well,
in the
that's
area.
the biggest tree. That's the biggest tree in that vicinity.
Well, I know, but the other trees probably preventing the other trees from growing.
Well, yeah, that's just what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And if it does fall, it's big enough, I think it may take some other trees with it, crush them, break them.
So you're in agreement with the arborist letter that the tree should be removed, right, Elaine?
Mhm.
Sadly, yes.
Yeah. And my point is only, is it really accomplishing anything if you planted another tree right there versus planting something in an entirely different part of the property? That's, it's not like it's creating a void, I guess, is what I'm trying to suggest.
Well, I tell you, it's large enough that it would leave a void behind. Tree of that size.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the aerial, the house is surrounded by trees. I can
Yeah.
share that if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul, please. I think we did that, but last time too.
There you go. That's 391 Vernon, so you can see that the house is pretty enclosed. Elaine, do you recall where this one is? Is it over in this area or?
I'll tell you where it is. It's in back. And if you were, that's it, stop, go back, that right there. Yep.
Okay.
Right about there.
If that's
a little
leaning
below that,
towards the
but I
house,
remember
that's a
it was
hazard for them.
right in back of the house.
Mm-hmm. It'll reduce canopy, Peter, but there's a lot of others around, so.
Yeah. Now, one thing I would not like to see though is if the tree comes down, then to turn that into a, plant grass or whatever to, turn it. I guess it's a wooded area, right? It's not.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
it should remain that way. You're right. I mean, it's also within 10 feet of the lane said it's in 10 feet of the resource area, which would say, that they shouldn't be doing anything there.
Right.
Can we stipulate that they have to plant?
Well, based on the tree policy, technically, they would need to provide some replacement.
Right, because it's a live tree.
Yeah.
But I do think we want to amend this tree policy to kind of clarify trees that are damaged, diseased, or, dying, should be treated differently.
Well, but
How
I
should
know-
they be treated, Bob? How should they be treated?
If the tree is imminently going to die, it's in a dying stage or whatever, then I think we kind of should be considering that as if it is dead.
And then
Um,
not require, not require a replacement?
in the case where it's clearly beyond hope, there's a fine line, right? Because if you just wait long enough, it's gonna die. And whether that's a week, a month, a year, I don't know, but I
I
think,
feel this is an existential question.
yeah, but I think we should clarify the policy some way to
I
accommodate.
think we
that.
should, but I'm not sure we need to do it for this one.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Right.
I agree.
And
I'm just throwing it out there.
And I think my thought is also that I do see situations that we should leave ourselves a little latitude. I think a mechanical rule in this instance, and for this kind of thing, I think we should have the latitude to waive the requirement of a. I look at that picture, I guess, and I see heavily wooded area, and it's gonna, in 10 years, that picture is gonna look pretty much the same. That area, I would think.
And in a case like this, could it be like, instead of a required, could it be a request? Thing.
It could. And again, the
Well, I
policy.
mean, at the moment, our policy basically would say that they have to replace this tree with.
Right, as it is today, they'd have to replace it with 1 deciduous trade sheet, 2.5 inches of greater,
Yeah.
or 1 evergreen, or whatever, 2 large shrubs, 3 small shrubs.
Well, that's
I don't
not
think
asking
that's
them.
unreasonable,
That's not
honestly,
asking
Bob.
them. I guess that's not asking the moon and the stars. That's not the. We're not.
Yeah,
No,
What about stump grinding, since it's so close to the wetland? That really shouldn't be allowed.
I don't
Yeah,
think,
agreed.
I don't think there should be any need to grind that stump.
I think you'd have a hard time getting a piece of equipment in there to grind it without taking out the trees too.
So a snag could be left then?
I would think a sag definitely can be left if it's that far from the house and that close to the wetland. Elaine, your opinions of snag wouldn't probably be an issue there, would it? It's probably gonna come down pretty quick anyways.
Yeah, that's true. I think that you might be better off putting some shrubs in there. Something that'll provide food. That would be my opinion.
But
Food and
that-
cover shrub.
That deep into the, the understory, you need something very shade tolerant.
Let me see if I can see what I can find.
Okay. And you said it's what, 10 feet from the resource area?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
So you probably got groundwater pretty close too.
Yes, high groundwater.
So
So
high
you're gonna need
groundwater
something that's
and,
wet tolerant.
yeah, wet tolerant and would thrive in a shaded.
Red twig
So-
dogwoods.
So it sounds like the recommendation is to follow the policy as is and
Mhm.
ask for mitigation. And Elaine will research something that would thrive in that type of location that would provide a food source. Potentially.
Okay,
All right, does somebody want to make a motion to have the tree removed? With the stipulation that the mitigation requirements are followed?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa. Oh,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. All right, we have another tree removal request at 49 Eunice Circle. And I think we just got that email today, maybe
Did we?
I'm sure I've seen it.
yesterday.
I don't remember seeing that, but
Yeah,
Elaine, did you go out there and look at that one?
I did. So this
yeah,
is another leaning tree. This one is in the wetland itself. It's about maybe 10 feet in. I think I sent you the photographs, and we were waiting for a letter from Keith's, and I told the woman if the letter didn't come in, it would get rolled over to the next meeting.
And it did not come in, did it?
hang on. Actually, you know what, Elaine? I think you sent me the pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got them.
So I
hang on.
talked to Rebecca this morning, and I told her that Keith was supposed to provide a letter. So if it had come in, Rebecca would have forwarded it to you.
All right. So first I will share the pictures. Here's Elaine's notes. Here's in a wetland about 15 feet from the bottom of a 10-foot slope. The roots are no longer holding it vertical, and the owner says it leans more each year. The crown of the tree is healthy. If you look at the photo, you will see the buds are set for next spring. If the tree falls, it will fall in the shed as shown in the photo.
It would also take out maybe a corner of the house, which is just outside. You can just see the little side of it. It would take part of that out, and would probably take out the shed. Yeah, that one, that first one, there it is. You can see how much it's leaning.
Yes.
That's the tree, the one
That's the
that's
tree,
leaning
yeah.
that far?
Wow.
I'm
Yep.
surprised it's still standing.
Yeah, it must be being held up partially by another tree, I would imagine.
It sort of looks
Wow.
like it is.
It looks like it, but it isn't.
Oh,
Wow.
really? Wow.
Yeah, that doesn't
Yeah,
have.
it kind of curves around. It kind of curves, doesn't it? Like,
Huh.
you know, it curves back up so it kind of stands up straight at the top, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think this is an easy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly this is similar to the last case where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this
this
is
one's
one- and
going
this
a
is-
lot sooner
yeah.
if they don't take it down too.
And this is one where, is it just going to be this one? And what about the one to the left and the right of it? Are those coming down as well?
No, just the one.
Okay, so that seems like a situation where you have 3 trees in very close proximity, and that if you take out the middle one, it's just going to let the other 2, you know, it's going to give room for the other 2 to grow. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but I mean, in terms of replacement.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem as if.
Instead of having 3 skinnier trees, you'll have 2
It's
fatter
also,
trees, you know?
Elaine, did you say it's inside the wetland boundaries already?
Yes, if you look at it, you can see the slope,
Yeah,
and then you see that where it's located from the bottom of the slope outward is the wetland itself. It's a red maple swamp.
okay. Yeah. I'm not sure there's a lot we could do in terms of mitigation replacement anyway in that, other than more red maples.
Yeah, right, not in that location.
Yeah, and I think Peter's right. You're gonna just see the other 2 grow in more healthily.
You could leave a snag, and it doesn't look like the snag would stay standing upright too long.
No. It'd be a relatively short snag so it doesn't fall on that shed.
Yeah. And the way it is leaning, I mean, that obviously could be a hazard too if, you know, whatever kids or whatever are playing back then, that thing did let go.
Have we gotten the letter from Keith's tree?
I'm
Not today.
I haven't seen it. That's why I asked. Yeah.
We did get a letter forwarded to us, but
We had one from
That was for the one we just saw, 391 Verde.
yeah, 391.
all right. Correct. All right, so what's the recommendation on how to handle this one?
Do we need the letter in order to do this, or can we?
Yeah, I don't think we need a letter for it.
Did you say you do or don't, Peter?
I think you do not. I
It's
mean,
pretty
you
obvious.
you looked at it and said that, you know, we don't need an arborist to tell us that the tree should come down.
Yeah, okay, it's fine. And I'll move we authorize this one to be removed.
Is there a second?
What about a no replacement? Doesn't have to be in that location.
That's true. We could ask for a replacement consistent with the tree policy.
Elaine, what would be your recommendation for? Because you had said something about food is, you know, that would be an important thing here.
Well, if you look at an aerial view like you looked at for 391 Vernon Street, you'd see a property where there's a backyard, there's a large wetland in the back, there's trees along the side, or at least one side. I remember the side I walked to the back with. I think with these lots, there often isn't a whole lot of room to put in more trees. But I think you can always find some room for shrubs.
So why not that?
Yeah.
And this one, I think there's a few more. I'll take a look at the aerial photograph, but I think there's room for, I think there's room for some shrubs in a sunnier location.
You'll work on a location and a possible replacement
Yeah,
recommendation.
I will do that. I will give her some shrubs and I'll take a look at the aerial photograph. I'll suggest some places. She's got some sunny parts to that yard. I think she's got some room around the shed that she could put a few things in that would provide some berries or something for pollinators.
That would be great.
Do you
Okay.
have with the policy, do you have any requirement for how many shrubs? 3, half a dozen?
Yeah, so there's 3 different options. First of all, the tree has to be 6 inches in diameter or greater, measured 4 foot up from the ground. I assume that that tree meets those requirements.
Oh, definitely.
And then the options are 1 deciduous tree, 2.5 inches or greater, measured 4 feet up from the ground, or 1 evergreen tree, 5 to 6 feet in height or greater at the time of planting. 2 large shrubs, 5 to 6 feet in height,
Okay.
or 3 small shrubs, 3 feet or greater in height.
Thank you, Ken.
There we go.
You see, Elaine?
Got it. Okay.
All right.
So I'll move that we allow it to be taken down and have replacement with shrubs consistent with Elaine's recommendation.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote yes.
Hey, Bob, while the tree policy is up, what were you folks discussing about changes, or what were the concerns? I could take a crack at amending the policy.
Something to give us some wiggle room where, you know, it doesn't actually have to be dead. You know, it could be dying or, you know, uprooted or rotted or something to the effect where it doesn't actually have to be currently dead.
And it has to do, I mean, it has to do with whether a replacement is required. So right now, it says all live trees must be replaced. So again, Bob, is your point, it should say live but not diseased?
I think, yeah, that would kind of go where I'm thinking. I guess that would be a good way to summarize it.
So I think that's the issue, Ken, because I mean, if we're allowed to allow diseased trees to be removed, but it has to do with the replacement policy.
But I think even a little bit more wiggle room than that, because in the last case, that leaning tree doesn't appear to be diseased, but it's inevitable.
Oh, right.
It's coming.
But look at the language that allows us to say it can come down. It's been a similar language. We could say diseased or compromised, or
Yeah,
I'll
both
come
those
up with
words,
something, yeah.
both those words would work if they were added in, at least
Yeah.
to what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I could add, at the agent's discretion type of language.
Yeah. It's not always
So-
black and white, I guess is my point.
So I have a question. Keith, are you going to rewrite the tree policy?
I can make some changes to it, and I could have it as a red line for you to look at it.
Okay,
Or
because
whoever
I
look at
hand that out to people. So if there were a change,
oh,
it'd
we
be
had,
good to put it in
it-
writing and then I can just
Yeah,
photocopy it and hand it out to people.
yeah.
We'll
In
have
the
to
past,
vote.
we've gone over changes and we've gone over it together, and then we've issued an addendum and posted that addendum to the or revised policy to
right,
the.
because it's on our website, the
the-
policy.
We will
Right,
provide.
but I
Once we
still hand
finalize
it out.
We will provide it to you, definitely.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll have to vote on those changes, obviously. But I do like the diseased or compromised words, Teresa.
Thanks for making those changes, Ken, and we'll look at it again next meeting
Yep. Thank me after I do it,
and make sure we get it to Elaine.
of course. Can I circulate that kind of thing outside of a meeting?
Yeah, because we'd be voting on it in a public forum.
Right, yeah, definitely get circulated, yeah.
So, and I'll repeat my desire to have some, element of discretion here.
Right, and I think the like diseased and or compromised words do kind of do that, but also to Ken's point, adding something about the agent's discretion.
Right.
All right, Jim has joined us for the 7:30. Anything else on this one or tree policy?
No.
Thank you. I'll get back to you.
All right, that's all we have right now for old business and other business that's on the agenda, but we can pick that up after the next two hearings. All right, so next up is 7:30 154 Salem, DEP 313635. It's a continued public hearing, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for approximately 410 linear feet of BVW and 751 linear feet corresponding to mean annual high water. Again, it is a continued public hearing. Is the applicant here? 154 Salem.
That's the one we walked on Sunday.
Yes, one of the two we walked on
One of
Sunday.
the two we
Yes.
walked on Sunday week.
The applicant does not seem to be here.
No. No.
You saw Rebecca's note about
The floodplain.
flood elevation there.
Yeah, whether it was 58 or 58.8 or something.
Yeah, the difference
It
between.
was 58.
Mhm.
Elaine, have you?
I think it was agreed
been
at
out there?
58.8 the
Right.
last two times.
I've been, they've come in twice, excuse me. One about 3 years ago and the other
Mhm.
one maybe 3 years before that. And I checked both wetland flags both times. Between 3 years ago and 6 years ago, the flags had not moved. I hadn't had a chance to take a look at it this time. But it seems to be a stable wetland, given the fact it hadn't moved in the 3 years preceding the one before that, or after the one before that.
Do we know if it was flagged the same as it was 3 years ago?
That's what she's saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
we don't know that. We don't know that.
I think Rebecca looked at both plans and they look the same. The wetlands flags haven't changed. This is the third filing.
Okay, so that they're okay. So that's what I'm saying. That they're consistent with the way they were 3 years ago and 6 years ago.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I thought you had just said before that they hadn't changed between 6 years and 3 years.
Oh, because I haven't looked at it now. I haven't
Right.
looked
Okay.
at
No
this
one's
one.
been out yet. Neither Elaine nor Rebecca have been out there now.
Correct.
But Rebecca thinks that looking at the plans, it looks like the flags from looking at the plans. So I'll ask the question: does that mean that does that suggest that is it necessary to look at it, or is it good enough to look at the plans and see see the flags looking like they're in the same place, or is that not a substitute for going out there and physically looking at the property? That's all I'm asking.
Well, it would appear we have time for one of either Rebecca or Elaine to go out, given the applicant isn't here. We're gonna have to continue, aren't we?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the right thing to do is to actually physically look at where the flags are and confirm that they haven't changed from 3 years ago and 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think when we walked it, our discussion with Thor, I think his name was.
Yep.
Was that he'd be able to go back with one of our agents.
Yeah, absolutely. He knows the drill.
So he knows the drill. So
I'm sure.
Yeah.
The aerial.
really,
That's not
Wait a
the
minute.
that's
area.
not the property.
But
That's
it
definitely
was
not the property. It's like no way that's the property.
154 Salem, right?
No, it's over.
Basically,
It's over this way. It's over toward Nebula. It abuts Nebulous almost. It's the
Yeah.
one it's where one's
Huh.
I
Okay.
mean, not even close. Not even close, Bob.
No, that's what Google thinks.
Yeah, I think Google's wrong on that one.
Google is definitely wrong.
I think it's that large. Yeah, it's there to the left of that.
no, because Nebulous is where that's where that warehouse is at the end of
Is it?
Nebulous Road.
Okay, Peter.
Yes.
So it's the
So it's to the right
green
of that.
plot immediately to the right of Nebulous. Then.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
It's
Yeah.
the one I'm circling.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
That's calling it as 162. Interesting.
Well, I mean, it's a continuous green right out to the road, continuous forested, and then drops fairly substantially. 10 feet.
Yeah, the aerial view looks nothing like it is on the ground, I have to say.
You know what?
Yeah.
Is it this house here?
No,
No.
it's not.
No, there's no house on it.
There's nothing. It's a lot of
vacant.
roughly 2 acres that the L&L is proposing to develop,
Huh.
or would like to at least have the wetlands confirmed so that they can then figure out what they can develop, I think. So
Bob, you went out the first time. I mean, you went out 3 years ago with us to see it.
I wasn't here 3 years ago, so
No, I'm saying Bob did.
yeah.
Hey guys, Thor Akerley from Williamson's Barrages here. Sorry I'm late.
Hey, Thorson. Maybe you can help us with this aerial. Which parcel are we looking for?
Hang on one moment.
It's got to be the one that says 162 on it.
Yeah.
I can just tell the position of the driveway relative to the entrance to Toby Lane.
So it's I believe it's between Nablus Road and 162. So that's kind of the entrance to the site. It might be the area to the left of Nablus, actually, now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I think it might be that wooded section there is the start of it.
That would make more sense to me.
It definitely
Peter,
would make more
because
sense.
That's a much larger area along
Yeah.
Salem Street.
Yeah,
and that's what I
that looks-
remember.
Yeah,
That
but the
looks
warehouse,
correct.
is at the end of Nablus Road.
There is right there.
There's a warehouse.
Oh, there
Yep,
it is.
so
Okay.
you could kind of see that area through the woods where we were
Oh,
at.
wait. Oh, look, it says Nablus Road there too. So that was why I got messed up.
Yes, there's Nablus Road in two places.
Oh,
So
I did not
Nablus
know
Road
that.
is supposed to be a U-shaped street, huh?
So Bob, if you take off the aerial, you can see plot lines usually.
Yeah,
So-
so yes, I'm sorry. There's now
If you
it's where
zoom
the
in a
warehouse
little
is.
bit.
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
So it's this general area here.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
that,
That's
it's
right.
that undeveloped area there.
Well, who would have guessed that there would be two Nablus roads entrances, curb cuts to the
Well, again, it
It's-
could be a,
It's way further down Salem Street.
yeah, it could be a U shape.
Around the curve.
It's right around here somewhere.
yeah.
It's to your left.
Keep
a
on
little bit
going.
Further, a little bit further. Yeah, it's that area there.
Oh, okay. Yes, I
Before
remember
this
this.
development.
Yes, yes, there's dirt bike tracks and trails back there and
I didn't see any dirt bike tracks. Not really.
No, nothing.
There's
No.
definitely trails though, right?
No.
Really?
No,
I didn't see
No.
there's
anything.
very little activity
Bob,
back
you gotta
there
go
from
back
what
out
we
again,
saw.
Bob.
I remember cutting through I remember cutting through here.
So was that where you were riding your dirt bike when you were a kid?
Okay.
His tricycle.
Take care.
I went to the
Tom.
Reading dump actually, which is where Home Depot is now. That's where I used to go.
Oh,
All right, so since we have Thorson here, what else do we want to talk about on this?
how about the floodplain issue?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read that.
Well, go read it now, Bob. Or maybe Elaine could bring us up to date on that.
Was there a question on the floodplain?
Yes. So the last time there was a filing on this property, and I think, Bob, Rebecca may have sent you information on this.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Conservation Commission approved a floodplain of 58.8. I think it was requested at 58, but the commission and it appears there may have been some conversation with then town engineer Mike Collins, but the ORAD says, or the minutes say, not the ORAD, but the minutes say that the floodplain elevation was supposed to be at 58.8.
Mm.
So I
Elaine,
think, yeah,
it was 58. That wasn't correct. It wasn't corrected.
what wasn't corrected?
You agreed on 58 because the sketch that was provided was what you voted on. There was a sketch provided in the last hearing. The last go round.
What do you mean the last go around?
There was a flood survey done and there was a sketch in that hearing that was presented. That was what the commission voted on.
Back in 2020?
Yes.
So I only know what Rebecca read from the minutes.
Yeah, the minutes
So-
say 58.8.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also a video of so I went back to the video and it started out 58.8 and then you agreed on 58.
So you're saying your minutes were incorrect, Judy? Is
Correct.
that what
And
you're
I'm,
saying?
and I'm saying no one corrected them, so.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, that explains it.
And maybe Thor remembers the same conversation because it was
I
lengthy.
think I do, because sometimes the floodplains along rivers can be a little tricky. You have to look at you can't just look at the map, you have to look at the profiles of it. And I think when we did that, we realized that it was 58, and perhaps if you looked at just the overlay map that, we submitted with the ANRAD, it wouldn't have been sufficient to tell you exactly where that elevation was. I think I do remember that conversation, yes.
So the good thing is it's all on video now. So if anyone wants to go back and watch the video, then you'd have a complete confirmation.
Oh,
Okay.
good for you,
And then
Judy,
we'll
to go
go
back and
back and
validate.
correct the minutes too.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, here are the minutes and here is that 58-8. I didn't look at the other minutes. Did they say something different?
No,
Okay, I'll let Rebecca know.
Yeah, that one also says 58-8.
so we just need to have Elaine or Rebecca go back out and look at the flags now.
Right.
So sorry, so just to circle back, is all we're looking for at this point to review the wetland with Rebecca and or Elaine?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, anything else for 154 Salem? All right, do you want to coordinate with Rebecca and Elaine on that site visit?
Yep. I will email you guys to check on your availability.
Okay,
Excellent. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Good night. If there's anybody here for 117 New Salem, I did announce earlier that that's postponed until December 5th at the applicant's request.
Thanks a lot. I just watched that whole thing for nothing. Heat, killing me.
All right, Elaine, you ready?
yes,
All right, any other business on your end?
me, no.
Okay. Judy,
The Open Space Plan Committee had a meeting last week. There's still time to give feedback on the action plan that I sent you guys a couple of weeks ago. If you have any comments, anything you'd like to add, and the next public forum is going to be in January 18th. It's a Thursday. It'll be 7 to 8:30. And that is going to focus on action plan goals, who'll be responsible for it, timeline, things like that. So if you have thoughts on that, there are some elements left from the 2005 open space plan that's going to be rolled into this one. So anything you have would be great.
it was good to see. It was good to see the bullets about putting signage at the start of trails and information at the openings of some of these open space locations, just so people understand, what they are, what's there, and all that. I think that's very valuable.
Yeah, and now that Wakefield has a communications director, that's been huge. Putting stuff on the website. There's also wayfinding around town, the kiosks. So we're going to try to utilize things like that as well. So I think that'll be helpful.
I think one of the missing, I don't know, links or whatever is still people don't know, like
Where
they
things
can
are.
park, how to
Right.
get there, or where they can enter.
Right. So the Eagle Scout project, they did put some signage at Rossmore Road and at JJ Round. They put a new sign with trail maps that are GPS located. So we're hoping to expand on that.
Now, I actually haven't walked the JJ Round one. I know where it is and I know where it goes, but is it very evident when you're in there that there's like one trail and that's it, or are you just kind of wandering through the woods?
I think it's pretty evident that there's one trail, and then
Okay.
there are several when you get to Holland Road. And then if you cross Oak Street to Melrose Ave and go down to the end, that trail goes right to Maple Way. And that's a clearly heavily traveled, not heavily traveled, but well beaten down.
Delineated.
Yep.
Yeah. So would it make sense for some of these other locations to maybe have blazes put on the trees or whatever if it's not totally clear, like a brake cart?
Yes, and that was part of the Eagle Scout project. They were going to blaze the trail in there.
Okay, great.
Judy, what'd you say the date was for that?
January 18th.
Judy, when you sent that email, I read the documents you sent, but I do not. It's a November 8th email you sent out, right? And it has the I had 3 attachments. One was the Concom the agenda, one was section 8, and one was the 2005 plan.
Right, section 8 was what we went over at the last meeting, and then
Okay.
the 2005 was for reference. That's
Okay,
where
I thought
some-
you were talking about section 9 being what we needed to be looking at in terms of an action
That's
plan.
for the, yeah, well, that's what we're looking at now. Section 8, we
Okay.
went over
Okay,
the objectives. And then this is the action plan. where we
okay, are
go
you
from
gonna
there.
be circulating that then too?
Yes, that will be circulated.
Okay,
I haven't
thanks.
yet, but it will be.
What time again did you say it was?
7 o'clock.
All right, thank you.
And I also went to the bylaw review committee last night. I sent you guys some information on the open space bylaw that's currently on the books that they were looking at. Open space development is the name of it.
What's
So,
that?
Yeah, and there was a note about a 20-foot
right.
setback.
It's interesting. This was put in probably around 30 years ago, they thought. And it basically is similar to another bylaw where there are no performance standards. There's no indication how a buffer would be determined and how the planning board would go about determining it. What really stuck out to me was one portion says, it says a 20-foot buffer unless the planning board may waive the buffer requirement if it determines a smaller or no buffer would achieve a similar goal. I don't know how no buffer to a wetland achieves anything. And it also allows a driveway necessary for access or egress to cross the buffer. So I made the point that if you're going to pave over it and drive over it, you no longer have a buffer. How are you determining anything without performance standards, which we've talked about this before? The fact that the commission has jurisdiction up to 200 feet and the attorney that the town has hired said it could be, sent over to conservation for comment, which is true. But I mentioned, doesn't that then defer authority from the planning board to the commission? If the commission is making the decision and then handing it to the planning board, then why is it under the planning board? So his suggestion was developing a wetland bylaw. This could be taken out of the zoning code and put under the wetland bylaw. So he was going to send some information, which is information that you've gotten before from MACC, the model bylaw, and how to get that rolling. So I think this is a prime opportunity. We've talked about this for at least a decade now, probably, well, more than that, having a wetland bylaw. And I think this is the perfect timing. And Theo Noel, the chair of the planning board, agreed with my assessment of it. And Brian McGrail did as well. So I think there is support for this. And on the face of this, when you read it, I mean, to me, it's egregious that you would even call it an open space bylaw and include wetland resources, because realistically, the areas that are open now around Wakefield are wetland adjacent. There aren't a lot of open spaces, and the ones that are are resource driven. I mean, we see that. And maybe there won't be a lot of open space developments under this, but this is what we're heading towards, is everything is going to be closer to the wetland. So I think getting some control over development like this is going to be important.
Judy, how is that worded, that 20 feet? Does it say resource area? Does it say wetland or what?
Well, they define primary conservation areas. Primary conservation areas such as wetlands, riverfront, floodplains, and those that are regulated by state or federal law. Secondary and natural landscape slopes, mature trees, on and on.
Okay. So this has been in effect for many, many years, but never enforced.
No one, I don't know that there have been any developments that have been constructed under this bylaw. It's not that it wasn't enforced. I don't know that anyone has chosen to, because it's like a cluster development. You have closer proximity houses, and you'll have an open area that is usable by, it can be either by the public or just by the residents if you have an HOA. I mean, I know there was a cluster development, the one right on Main Street. It was Fideli's property. There were sheep there at one point at BB Cove. I can't remember the name of it. They're big houses.
Oh, yeah. Carriage.
Yeah, Carriage Lane.
Carriage.
That was, I think, a cluster development.
Okay,
So
right.
it's a common area. So this is a similar. But where they were going over it, they were just kind of glossing by it. And I think there's agreement that it should be under the Conservation Commission. So I think it's an opening for the commission to, one, have support to get the wetland bylaw, and also put some of these zoning bylaws under conservation where they belong. It'll streamline the permitting process. It's going to save money for people who are looking to develop close to wetlands.
And Judy, do you think sentiment has changed it's been 3 years, I think, since we tried to do that, just by moving the zoning bylaw having to do with proximity to the wetlands.
But I think if it's driven by the commission, it's different than whether it's driven by one citizen, which that was.
Was it?
Yes.
Really?
The petition was put forth by one citizen, not by the commission. The commission supported it. But I think now
sorry, wasn't the issue, the way I understood it, was that with the bylaw, then the town council could override that?
No.
No.
Oh.
No.
No,
okay.
it was.
Well, Haley, if it's a bylaw, the Board of Appeals can override that.
Oh, wrong.
No, the Board of Appeals can't. Not if it's a wetland bylaw.
Not a wetlands bylaw, no, Jim.
No, I'm not talking about, if it becomes a bylaw, that becomes part of the town's bylaws. That
Right, but it can be
it can be removed for a particular project.
Right, I mean, right, you can remove a bylaw, like the one we talked about before, that can be deleted altogether because it's already covered under the commission's purview. But I think now is the perfect time to have some wetland bylaws. It'll give you, I mean, the majority of towns do have bylaws, and most of them have at least a 25-foot setback. And then it gives the commission the same discretion to determine the distance of a buffer that they have now. It just gives a little more teeth.
Judy, you're preaching to the choir. We'd like a wetlands bylaw. So
I know, but it actually it has to actually be done. That's the thing. And now is the time. There's support for it. Having support from Brian McGrail is huge. He's, I mean, the attorney for everything that comes through Wakefield. His research is meticulous. He's well-spoken. I think he'd be, a good proponent of this. The attorney who's a bylaw specialist who's doing the recodification thought it was a good idea. The chair of the planning board thought it was a good idea.
So maybe
So-
third time will be the charm.
Right. I think this is a prime opportunity.
Yeah, can we put on the agenda for the next meeting to just go over the MACC model bylaw? I mean, would that be our starting point?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to do with it. I mean, you have the whole, it's basically written out for you.
Right, I'd like to just
That's
go
the
over it as
beauty
a
of it.
group. I'd like to just go through it at a meeting as a group, so we can.
Yeah, and maybe someone could circulate it to us before time.
That would
Wow.
be a good idea, yes.
Wow.
Imagine being prepared, Peter, right?
So this.
No, I
would
think that would
actually-
be, I agree. I think we all agree in this, we should, and I
Yes.
think the fact that there is a model bylaw that, you know, someone took a lot of time to prepare, that would be an
Yeah,
excellent starting point.
absolutely.
So the timeline you should be looking at is the Springtown meeting, because I think that's when they're
Mhm.
presenting all of the bylaw changes. So if you want this moved in under wetland, and if you want the other one, if you want to try to get rid of it altogether, which I think is a great idea, or roll it in, I mean, 50 feet, I think is preposterous in this town.
You're talking about the
You
stream,
wouldn't be able to build anything,
the stream setback?
right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
All
I'm
right.
looking forward to going through that, but I think that'd be a great thing for the agenda item for the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be a huge thing if we could pass that, huge.
I agree.
It gives
And I
us,
think
it gives
this
us
is-
more, again, it gives us more power to enforce a bylaw as opposed to just,
Right.
I just say just. It just gives us more authority.
Yeah,
That's
and we
right.
want to, and the town should want to, you know, engage in best practices, and this would be, you know, something that has been developed by MACC would be
Right.
consistent with that.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
clean and simple. The
Right.
first go around, it was a little too complicated and had too much teeth.
It was way too, yeah, it wouldn't be fines, there wouldn't be any, that wouldn't be part of it, not
Right.
at all.
Right.
No.
Well, we have to read the model bylaw.
Yeah.
Fine.
All right, we do have 8:02, so we can continue this discussion afterwards. If there is more to discuss. If not, we will start DEP 313632. Continued public hearing for 60 Farm Street. Again, this is the notice of intent for the construction of the new high school building, track and field parking, and you know, all the rest of that. So, let's see, Erin, are you there?
Bob, this is Peter. Aaron's actually couldn't make it tonight,
Okay, hello, Peter. Good
so
evening.
thank you. But have no fear. We still have a very knowledgeable team with us. Megan Collins, landscape architect, who's been to all the meetings. Mary Rimmer, wetland scientist, been to all the meetings, as well as Dan Clasby's here tonight, who is another civil engineer, who's worked on the project a whole lot and knows everything about it. So 2 weeks ago, we had a very productive meeting, I think, with the commission. We closed some items, we opened up a few more, and at the end, we promised a large packet of information, which we sent that large packet. I hope you received that large packet.
We did.
Obviously, I know you guys still have tons of questions about it. So tonight we were just hoping to walk through. It basically was 3 items. It was a letter directed to this commission, which were some items that were reviewed last time and closed, a few that were still open. It was a letter to engineering, which we met with Rebecca, Jim, Bill, and his team to talk that letter through. So those answers were pretty well vetted with Bill and his reviewer, Tim. So that letter and attachments are there, and then as well as the letter response to DEP, which there was some overlap with engineering, so some of those answers are actually exactly the same. But that letter was also submitted to DEP today, actually, with those materials. So we're just going to go through those 3 pieces, hit the big items, stop us at any time, and hopefully we can continue the discussion and come to a consensus on some of these open items.
Peter, one question for you. So I did read all 3 letters in the packet that was sent to us. I know you had a number of responses back to engineering. With your meeting with engineering, was there any indication that they would be responding back to your responses, or were they satisfied with your responses?
I don't know technically or logistically, I should say. I don't know how it will work. We didn't really get to that point. We kind of got into the weeds about the comments themselves. So I'm not sure if Bill's planning on, or I don't know, does he usually issue a final statement saying he's okay with everything? I guess that'd be a question for you.
Yeah, we sometimes do get that type of acknowledgement, or he could actually send your responses back with additional questions. So I wasn't sure, based on everything that I read, if engineering was satisfied. I know Rebecca was off today. Elaine, I don't know if there's any notes or correspondence from Rebecca, regarding the meeting that she had. Actually, Jim, you were there, right?
Yes, I was there.
So were there outstanding questions that came out of that meeting that haven't been answered?
I would say there's a few items that, and I don't want to speak for Rebecca without her being here, but she was kind of saying, well, we'll see what the commission says about those. So we'll touch on those items and hopefully get your feedback. I will say, I would say most of the comments from engineering were very straightforward, and they were, Bill and his team went through with a fine-tooth comb. They found an inconsistency. We fixed that inconsistency. I can't imagine he would respond back saying that's not okay. It was things that didn't impact the design. It didn't impact, the overall strategy of stormwater. There was just a few small things in terms of calculations that we needed to provide and spreadsheets that needed updated, things like that. There were 2 or 3 items that warranted further discussion, which we would hope to discuss with you tonight, though.
Okay, yeah, we will be looking for some sort of confirmation from engineering department that they are satisfied, either written or somehow communicating to us. But anyways, let's proceed with what you want to cover.
Understood. Sure. So the first item, which we talked about briefly last time, and it was actually listed in the engineering letter and the DEP letter, which was the issue of using porous surfaces within the buffer. So if you remember last time, and Dan, feel free to share the screen whenever you see fit. We shared a table that had some quantities of existing versus proposed impervious surfaces within the 25-foot and 100-foot buffer. And we went back, and what we did was we updated that table, and we basically took out the area that is shown in front of you that's highlighted in red, because this is the porous that's within the 100-foot buffer. And to step back, the comment is within 100 feet of a water body, which wetlands are considered a water body, you are not allowed to use porous pavement BMP, best management practice. So the surfaces that are highlighted right there are both porous asphalt as well as permeable pavers for pedestrian spaces, and they are within the 100 feet. So when you look at it that way, they do not meet the setback. So that was a comment from engineering as well as DEP. So where we kind of differed, and we talked about this with Bill and Rebecca, is the way we're viewing these surfaces is they're not really a treatment BMP. The water there that's infiltrating through them is clean. It's coming from pedestrian only surfaces. It's coming from vegetated surfaces. It's really no different than if it was just a lawn there. And the water would run right through that and go recharge the ground, go in the wetland, wherever it goes. So that's why we didn't really see that setback applied here. As well as in terms of because of the school program and access, we need this path behind the school. So we wanted to use these to remove the impervious from that to the wetland.
Right, and I guess the other point was that by doing this, you're not allowed to put the de-icing chemicals on those pavers, which is actually a benefit to us.
Correct. So that was a big piece of, we talked it through with Rebecca and Bill, and we said, we can definitely change this to standard asphalt. That's an easy change. But when we kind of went through the pros and cons, if you change this to standard, one, you're adding impervious very close to a wetland, which is something that you try to avoid at all costs. And then two, it is something that will need to be maintained for safety. You're going to have kids walking back there. You're going to have outdoor classrooms back there. So you're definitely going to need to maintain it in the winter. And as we talked about in terms of de-icing chemicals and the use of salt on standard asphalt is something you would need to consider. So you would probably need to, add drainage infrastructure back there to take the water away. And you'd have to make sure the people who are spreading the salt back there are, we'll say, accurate with where they throw the salt. So the winter maintenance is definitely a concern. And then as well as just the less amount of recharge adjacent to a resource area.
And what was engineering's take after that was presented in that manner?
I think, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Bill, but I think Bill was, I guess, in agreement with us. I don't know, Jim or Dan, if you would. I don't think Bill and Tim had a huge issue with that. I think Rebecca was very hung up on that. It is a regulation, and we would be going against what is in black and white in the regulation, which I think is exactly why DEP commented on it. But I think that Bill and his team saw the benefits of leaving it.
Jim, what did you take out of that part of the discussion?
I think that's pretty much what was discussed, is the way he presented it now. We did talk about one thing that me and Bill agreed on, that is that we didn't like the pervious pavement. I think he said he was in agreement with that, didn't he?
Didn't like pervious or impervious?
Yeah, he didn't like the pervious pavement.
Yes,
pervious, yeah. And I know there was a difference now between putting pavers down and then putting the pervious pavement. Did you check? I think the last discussion we had was that it was kind of an expensive alternative, or would that even be acceptable? Would be my question.
So right now the pathway behind is porous asphalt, and then the pedestrian or the gathering spaces are pavers.
Yeah.
And obviously the pavers are they're better looking, and they're much more expensive. So we have the whole pathway right now as the asphalt. I will say, when we met with Bill previously, we were directed not to use the asphalt in vehicular areas, which is why none of the vehicular pavement on the site is porous asphalt. It's all standard asphalt. And then we saw this pathway as an opportunity to use it because it's pedestrian only, and in the case of an emergency, they could pull an ambulance or police cruiser back there, but it's designed for pedestrian.
Just out of curiosity, was the track is the track porous? I mean, that kind of goes right where the current track is, isn't it?
Yeah, so the track itself is impervious. It's rubber with asphalt underneath it.
Okay.
The field is it's porous. It's just
obviously, yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
What is porous asphalt?
Porous asphalt is basically asphalt that has larger gaps in it, so the water can infiltrate. So the mix of stones, it leaves more voids, so the water can go through it, as opposed to you put like a tack coat, it's called, on normal, which is if you ever see freshly paved roads and the water kind of beads up on it. So you don't put that on this, and so that the water can just infiltrate right through it.
They use larger aggregate in that surface.
Can you think of any examples around town, Bob, where there's porous asphalt?
I don't think they've used it in the town. I don't think I don't know of anywhere that they've used it. I could be
It
wrong.
seems to be an oxymoron. I just, the concept of it is unusual, but.
Well,
I've seen it at some
what do
environmental
you know?
areas and the like, Teresa, parking lots.
What do you know about the maintenance and longevity of using the previous pavement? I mean, I've always been told that the sand and stuff gets into it, it clogs up fairly quickly. Now I know you're saying that you're not gonna use sand back there. What are your feelings about how it would function?
Sorry, Jim, who are you asking directly? Are you asking our opinion from SOMA, or are you asking your
I'm
own team?
asking Peter. Yeah, I'm asking Peter.
Yeah, I don't, Dan or Megan, feel free to chime in if you've had experience. I will say in vehicular areas, it definitely takes wear and tear, and when cars turn on it, that definitely can chew it up. In pedestrian, where I've seen it, and I don't know places where it's been installed, how long ago it was installed, but it's always seemed to function well. Maintenance is a big part, and if the people who are maintaining it aren't used to it, then it'll be something they'll have to get used to. Yeah, you can't put any sand or salt or de-icing on it because that will clog the pores and defeat the purpose of it.
I
will add that there is a very, very old, very long installed parking lot at in Lexington at Walden Pond, and that is a very well documented by sorry, I think it's I can't think of the DCF. Is it DCF? Nope, that's children. But they have documented well that it
DCR.
Thank you.
DCR.
Thank you, DCR. There are also many, I went to Rutgers University, the DEP and Rutgers have parking lots at the DEP offices in New Jersey that have been installed for 40 plus years, and they have well documented the way that they drain and the longevity of the pavement. There are really awesome videos of dump trucks just dumping water, and you can see how fast it drains through. They do require not using salt, not using sand in those instances where there is vehicular use in parking lots. They're only used for the parking spaces because they don't stand up to the turning radius. It's just much too flexible. The voids are too large, and the pressure from the tires just creates ruts. And so it's not a recommended use, but using it for pedestrians is a really awesome and really well documented way to use it. And sometimes there is vacuuming that's necessary if there is a salt, or if it does get a sand application, or if it does get clogged. But there are maintenance objectives that can be, used, and that will be part of our O&M manual to prevent that from happening.
Also, I'll just add that all that being said, this is our design team's recommendation. This is our recommendation to the town and for the project for our client, the kind of the school building committee, that they invest in the porous pavement here because we think it's less of an impact on the wetlands. We think it's less of an impact in this rear part of the school. So it is a premium cost that you're paying for the porous pavement over standard asphalt. And Jim, like your first question, no, we couldn't afford to do pavers for this whole length. That would just take program out of the project elsewhere, which we can't afford to do. So we are recommending that the project invest in the porous pavement.
Okay, I just one other question then. In the winter, what are you going to do when it's snowing and stuff like that? How if you don't salt and you don't use some type of treatment, how are you going to have people using that area?
It's mechanical. You plow it. You shovel it.
Use a snowblower, right?
Yeah, use a snowblower.
But because there is no, it doesn't hold water on the surface, there's no freeze thaw, there's no icing that happens on these surfaces when they're properly maintained. So we don't need to have the de-icer applied because there's no water sitting on the surface. There's no water that needs to be melted. As long as the snow is mechanically removed, the water moves through the surface.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Is it a dark color also, like asphalt is, or is it lighter like concrete in color?
It's generally dark. It goes on and it'll look kind of like bituminous asphalt. It's a darker color at first, and then it lightens up over time, just like roadway pavements do.
How wide is this pedestrian walkway?
It's 12 feet where it's a little wider there, and on the right side of the page, and then it goes down to 6 feet on the left side or the south side, the left side.
Right, you can see it's wide up to here, and then it gets a little narrower on the left.
Okay, because I mean, I would imagine you're gonna use a snow blower, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're gonna blow it right in DVW. That's all right.
Well, that's why we reviewed snow storage areas that were approved also. We're pushing the snow where it has to be pushed. And...
Okay. All right.
I would also add that I know we're focusing on this 100-foot because that's where the setback is, but we're also using this material elsewhere on the site for a lot of the pedestrian walkways. So it's not something that won't be part of the maintenance if we take it out here. It still will be. So that's another reason why we think it's a good idea to leave it in, because it'll just go with the rest of the site.
So will you be somehow marking the areas that will have this previous pavement so that people know, or how would you have to make any kind of notation so that whoever's doing it understands that they can't put chemicals down?
Yep. So there was a snow storage plan. We reviewed it last time, and I think it was Rebecca caught a couple of errors on it, but we reissued that, and that was in the packet that we sent. It's figure 3.14, I believe. And we met with Tim O'Brien at the school, and he said he's going to hang it up in the office, give it out to all the staff, and they do the winter maintenance on the pedestrian spaces. So
would there be signage also
seemed
somewhere?
like he was on board.
Like signage back there, it'll say, whatever previous pavement, no treatment after this point, or something like that.
That's more what I was getting at.
I don't think so. I think it's you give it to the maintenance guys and they're responsible for it.
And because it's a site-wide existing, it's a site-wide condition, it wouldn't be that the sign would happen here, because this path continues up to the front of the building, and it continues off to the north. So it would be a site-wide, no application of ice melt on this particular surface. But we can use that educational signage that we've talked about in the past to talk about how porous pavement works, and to give the public an insight into why we used it on the project, and to really kind of explain how it works, if that's something that you guys think would be helpful.
That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely.
So we kind of come back to the question that we had discussed. We got it as a comment from DEP and engineering, and Rebecca wanted to make sure that this commission was aware of the regulation that for a typical porous pavement BMP, which we see as kind of trafficked roadways, you would not put porous pavement within 100 foot of a wetland. But because our perspective is that this is not a trafficked way, it's really just an access path, a walking path for people that circulate the building. We think porous pavement is still the best option. So what does the commission think? What do you recommend?
I'm in favor of it. Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm
I
also
agree
in
with that.
favor of it. I guess the question is, anybody not in favor of it?
I don't know what else you could do.
I think it's a good solution, and I understand Rebecca's concern, but I think in this case, it makes sense to go this route.
Great.
Agreed.
So it sounds like we all are in agreement there.
Great. Consider that one closed, and we will keep the porous pavement in the project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was really the last of the Conservation Commission comment letter. Everything else like lighting, the culvert logistics, the level that was reviewed last time. So another item that engineering flagged was the desire for more infiltration on the site. And why aren't we infiltrating the roof? And I know that's come up a couple times. So Dan, do you want to share some thoughts and figures and kind of explain what our response was to that?
Yes, I will. So I'm going to show this map, which I'm not sure if everyone's seen, but it's in on all our submitted materials, including the original submission. This is a hydrologic map. So we use dashed lines to separate different, what we call subcatchments that are going either into pipe systems or into storage systems. And then I've highlighted in yellow the hydrologic soil groups. So there's a C on kind of this bottom page of the site, which is the east, and to the south, which is up in the hills where it gets into higher elevations. And then hydrologic soil A is on the west end of the site. And what these mean is that hydrologic soil A's are very well draining soils. And I apologize if some people know this and some people don't, but I just wanted to make this explicitly clear that we've thought about it and we've looked at the site constraints and we think we have the best design that suits the site. So hydrologic soil A are very well draining, which means you're looking at like sands and sandy loams, and those are good candidates for infiltration, and they have generally better separation of groundwater. And then hydrologic soil group C are either shallower to bedrock and or shallower to groundwater and or like siltier and clayier materials. So when you put a system there, they don't drain very well, which means you have not as good treatment of the water that's going there. It's less efficient. You just have more overtopping of your basins. Mm-hmm. So if I flip on this little markup I did here now, so our building is located on top of where the existing track is, and that's all been labeled by the USDA as hydrologic soil group C and then verified by our infield testing. It's much shallower to groundwater, a couple siltier materials. And then the west half, I circled in red, all these subcatchments are going to some form of recharge. So our field system goes to its own subsurface field infiltration. And then our north parking lot goes to these two subsurface chambers. And then our kind of front parking lot, just west of the school, this where that PR 1.8 is, also goes to a subsurface perforated pipe system. So what we're doing is collecting and capturing and slowing and storing and infiltrating where it makes the most sense and where it's the most effective in this hydrologic soil group A's. And so the question was, you're not doing any infiltration on the east side of the site. Can you infiltrate any of the roof? And our response to that is that there are several site constraints, including that there's not a lot of area outside of the building. We have the wetlands to the east. We have a bunch of utility corridors in the softball field to the north. This blue line is our major culvert. So that's the 10 feet wide by 4 feet high culvert that we're relocating. So you can't cross over top of it. So if our drainage systems from the roof were to go underneath the culvert, then you wouldn't be able to connect back to it by gravity. So it's very limited on the west side of the school. And then the south side is where you get these steep slopes that go up to Hemlock. And there's really just no room, and any system placed back there on the south side would then be just draining and putting the stormwater into the building footing perforated drains, which are there to protect groundwater from heaving any of the building footings.
Right.
So this is kind of it's a lot of information and it can get very technical, but I just wanted to summarize that we are providing, and then engineering asks for the quantification of what we are providing versus, and because this is a redevelopment, our criteria is maximum extent practicable towards what the requirement would be for a new development. So they asked us what those numbers are. So if this were a new development, if these were all woods and we were clearing it and proposing this building and track at this place, the requirement would be about 20,000 cubic feet of recharge provided. And what we're providing for those areas in red going to recharge structures is about 11,000 cubic feet. So about 55% of the requirement. And we think this is all right sized. Making any of these systems bigger wouldn't necessarily improve the performance. It would just add cost to the project. And we really don't see a good spot for the roof to go anywhere. So the roofs currently are just connected to the culvert. And also sometimes with the hydrologic models, having something go through the culvert first, as opposed to detaining everything and having them all released at the same time, actually improves the performance downstream over time. So letting some of the roof go immediately into the culvert and out actually helps us for the larger storms that come on the west end of the site, are stored for a little while and then released into the culvert. So we haven't, that's the response we provided, and we stated the soils and some of the site constraints, and we think engineering is going to say thumbs up to that. They were receptive in the meeting, and they just, Bill basically asked that we run the soils by the commission and make sure everyone here understood that and that there's no more questions. So I know that's a lot of information, but I hope it's clear, and we think the systems are right sized.
Can I ask?
Sorry, go ahead, Haley.
Sorry, on the field where you're catching and then ultimately infiltrating, did I don't recall exactly, but did I see at some point that the plan was for turf on there?
Yes, there's an artificial turf field interior
Is
to
there
the
a reason that it has to be artificial turf?
That's a larger programming question for the town and the athletics program, that was decided a while ago.
Okay, well, that I know that's technically outside of the jurisdiction of our buffer zone there, but I think it would be much more beneficial to not use turf.
We also are replacing what's existing at Beasley Oval. So it's really ultimately up to the building committee whether this gets built in the manner that we've designed it. And they have okayed it, and they have given us the directive to use a synthetic turf field inside of a track to have the same programming that they have currently at Beasley Oval.
Is the field considered pervious or impervious?
Pervious, but it also runs off to a collection system, which goes to an infiltration trench.
Right.
So there will be some natural infiltration through the field, but also on a larger storm that runs off the field, it will then be sent to a recharge system.
Okay. And what type of storm is that designed for?
You mean, what is your question? What size storm does it recharge before it overtops?
Yes.
I'm not precisely certain, but at least half an inch. It could be 3/4 of an inch to an inch. So 1 inch of rain falling over that area, which is a large area. It's a large system. The infiltration trench is basically encircling the track area on the inner part, the outer rim of the field, the inner part of the track lane. So it's 1,200 feet or something like that of like a 5 foot wide trapezoidal channel with perforated pipe. It's a large volume.
All right, any other questions about this?
And as Dan stated, this was an item that Bill could have feedback on. Because in the meeting we talked it through, and he told us what to do, and we did it. But something could have got lost in translation, or he could have thought we were going to do something different. So this is one of the items that we would look to Bill to give us the ultimate thumbs up, because this is what we presented in our response letter back to him.
Okay.
And I think we got a positive response in the meeting, and he just wanted to see it documented. So this was part of the documentation that we sent. Great. There is one other item that I want to follow up on. We mentioned this at the previous meeting and then said that we would follow up with figures, and that is that at the end wall discharge for this culvert, we had originally proposed, I'm going to flip to one figure that we had originally proposed, a limit of disturbance. And we are saying that we want to do a little bit more disturbance to significantly improve the area. And so I'll show those two things. So at the end wall, sorry if it's a little glitchy for those that are panning. You can see on the left, we've had this gray hatch for where the existing end wall is. This is where the existing culvert discharges. We're extending that end wall. And there's currently a kind of stilling basin here that I think some kids that were there when we were kind of surveying this and working in the area have kind of laid stones across the stream, and it's kind of damming up and forming this stilling basin right in front of the existing end wall. And basically noticing that condition and then looking at the actual grading of that, we would look to remove that stilling basin so that there's less sediment buildup here and more kind of flow out of the culvert, rather than all this silt. There's like 12 to 18 inches of just a silty material piled up in front of this end wall that's kind of just never been cleared. So let me zoom in on this kind of purple area. So we had, in our original NOI submission back in September, we said we're going to disturb temporarily about this much area in order to get this end wall in, kind of in that purple there, and that's all within the wetland. Now, if I flip to the next page, you can see the purple area is a little larger. And because what we noticed was there was that there was a right across here where this section A arrow is kind of pointing, there was this kind of stone dam. So we want to remove that stone dam and then take this area that we're cutting and basically transfer it over here where there's going to need to be a fill condition where the existing stilling basin is. So in the previous photo, you had kind of seen the water that was, we would basically, the previous submission said we're going to join the existing stilling basin. And our revised submission here, and I have spoken with our wetland scientists about this, and also our landscape architect who know more about what the soils and what the plantings want to be here and what is actually rendered. We basically have a reinforced kind of stone wall at whatever proper elevation it has to be matched in the field to continue the stream the way it wants to go, which is kind of off the page to the right here. And then this on the left is that kind of fill condition I just described, where it's currently a stilling basin a few feet down and also with 12 to 18 inches of sediment that isn't really going to grow anything. But if we do this kind of stabilized turn with stone, so that'd be like 12 to 24 inch stone to stabilize this turn. And then this kind of, I think the right term is upland, wetland. I'm going to let Megan or Mary Rimmer say what this.
Basically, we'd be taking the land out of water. Currently, that land is underwater, and we would be bringing it. We would be cutting and then filling in this area so that there would be an area that could be inundated, and so that would be planted with plants that would take up to one foot of water, and then there would be we would meet the existing grade, and those plants in that area would be sort of more upland species, but all still wetland indicator plants to go through this area. And we feel like this will be a better situation than having standing water constantly in the area. And the stone that Dan is panning over right now is really reinforcing the slope up from the water. And so this will help us to keep water from coming back and filling in the area that we're basically taking out of the water.
So we're seeking the commission's opinion and approval of this bit of extension of the limit of work, but we think it significantly improves the area, and the reinforcement will improve the direction of the stream. But we're open to discussing and making sure you're crystal clear.
Are you proposing like pollinator plants or food source plants in that area?
Yeah, so there would be definitely pollinators. Hopefully there would be enough light in there. When we did our we went through and we did some additional investigation of grades, and when we went through, we realized that we would be taking out 2 trees, and so those 2 trees are being replaced in the foreground of the image. And I think that we also resubmitted the planting plan for this area so that you could see what the species are. It's
you want me to pull that up, Megan?
Sure. It's a lot of grasses. It's we would do plugs of irises, grasses, what else is in there? Juncus, all things that can take about a foot of water being inundated. And so that's that list of the 45 each of those plugs. And then we would move upland and have 25 each of eupatorium, Joe pieweed, and some boneset and Rudbeckia. And then this whole area would also be overseeded with the wet mix seed, so that we would get a really good vegetated surface to really resist erosion once the water is coming back through the channel.
If I could just clarify this, Mary Rimmer here from Rimmer Environmental, that whole area would essentially become BVW. It's at the lower portion of it would be more obligate species, like a fresh marsh, emergent marsh that would grade up to a wet meadow, which would be more facultative species.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Can you go back to that drawing you had, that picture that showed the?
Yep.
What in that picture is existing? Anything?
So there's a dashed red line, if you can see on the left there. That's kind of that's outlining the existing end wall, and so above that is all the existing kind of like thicket, and then behind our proposed end wall, you kind of see in the back the yellow is the softball field kind of fence. So there's existing on the left and kind of back middle of this page, but the foreground, our end wall extension is a rendering sketch, and the water is a rendering sketch, and then
all that vegetation is rendering.
All the vegetation is a rendering sketch.
So from looking at that picture, are you the area that you're taking down is that area where your hand is pointing, correct?
Yes, I can pan to the top too. Hopefully it's not glitchy for everybody. So this area in purple is what Megan was saying is currently land underwater that we are proposing to change to BVW.
Is that part of the area that you're showing in that drawing as water? Is that's part of
in the photo rendering, you mean, Jimmy?
The water is green.
The green area is where the land underwater would be. So the culvert is the kind of structure on the left. It comes out, discharges right where my cursor is now, and then it wants to turn almost 90 degrees to the left. Yeah.
And that's where you're talking about reinforcing the banks with rock or something like that for.
Yeah, we would reinforce it to a very specific elevation here. So you can see it would discharge. The culvert would discharge onto about 12 inches of kind of a riprap, like 6 to 12-inch stone. That of course will just build up kind of with the natural sediment or whatever comes out of the culvert over time. But then we'd have this reinforced slope up to elevation 51, which is our kind of observed in the field kind of bank downstream of where the stream kind of wanted to be or started eroding naturally. So we're going to match that elevation with that 12 to 24-inch stone. And then off the page to the right here are the kind of upland BVW plantings that Megan and Mary were talking about.
And the existing culverts that are out there now, are you matching that invert?
Yes.
With the new discharge pipes?
Yes.
Is there sediment in that conduit now? The existing big conduits?
Yes. And part of it is due to this stilling basin. It's like the existing one kind of discharges, and there's a stilling basin like this.
Yeah.
So it has to get up to a certain elevation before it overflows to the rest of the stream. So what we're saying is we want to take out this part.
Yep.
And have it flow more naturally, at a lower elevation. We want to move this hill over to here. If that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
But we're asking your permission for the little bit of addiction. We said in our original filing a certain amount of temporary effect here on our Form 3 for Mass DEP. We're basically doubling that area, but certainly not tripping any thresholds, which would require any kind of Mary,
Yeah,
we're still well
under. I was going to say we're still well under the thresholds.
Yes.
I think the threshold is 5,000 square feet of disturbance trips you into some kind of formal review. We're at this is about 1,000 square feet, so it's 20% of whatever threshold we would potentially hit. But just making sure we're all on the same page that this is actually a more accurate, the purple is a more accurate picture of the limit of work we're proposing, and that we think this will actually significantly improve the condition over our original submission.
And again, just to clarify, the original submission was just identified the impacts associated with the reconstruction of the culvert and the end wall. We're expanding the impacts and the benefits in order to remediate a downstream condition.
Okay.
Right.
It seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. We think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I just have
And just to clarify, on the photo rendering just below here, what we're seeing then to the left of the rock bank, that's all going to be the wetland planting now, in the expanded wetland areas. Am I correct about that?
Yes, it grades up though to the tree. So at some point it becomes upland. But,
right. Okay. Makes sense.
I have one more question. Your discharge point that your green line turns, right? Is that going into the stream heading down to Water Street? Or are you dumping into the wetland?
We're going into the wetland. I'm not sure where Water Street is. This whole wetland, to my knowledge, kind of generally flows north and goes towards the Mill River.
Towards Water Street ultimately.
I'm not exactly sure which.
To the Mill River. It goes to the Mill River.
Goes to the Mill River, right?
This goes north to the Mill River. Yeah.
But there is a stream back there, and I was just wondering.
This is the stream.
Well, that's my question.
Yep.
So that's going to go right into the stream that's been there forever, and your grades are of course lower as you go further away from where you're working, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's right.
Great. Well, if there's no other questions, we appreciate your attention on this one. We think it's a significant improvement, both over the existing condition and also over our original submission. Just adding the plantings and the reinforced turn is an improvement already.
Yeah. Any further, I guess, comments or discussion from the commission regarding this?
Nope.
Okay.
Great.
We're all in favor on that.
Very much.
And then, so the last piece, so we know we're going to need to see a response from Bill to formally close out the engineering comments.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay. And then the last piece of this was the DEP comments, which DEP actually doesn't provide a second round of responses to this level of comments. So we sent back our responses. Obviously, a lot of them were overlapped with engineering. So like the infiltration was a comment. The porous paving was a comment. So a lot of the responses were the same. One item that they did flag was separation to groundwater for our infiltration, which again was a good catch. We had some inconsistencies in our plans, so we revised those systems. They're all within the regulations now. We provided mounding analysis calculations as they requested. So with the DEP comments, we don't see anything that they would be unsatisfied with. Not that we would know because they won't respond, but we're very comfortable with our responses to those comments.
Yeah, I did take a look at those mounding, submissions back too, that you submitted to us.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
So that was everything we had, unless there's specific questions, and then we just wanted to kind of talk about the next steps with this commission.
Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Right.
I guess, Jim?
Didn't you guys say that you had a rendering of what the site looks like?
Oh,
Yeah.
I did download a couple photos. Hold on, let me try again. I'm not the design technology wizard, but I did grab a couple here. Let's see. How do I do this? I think this is a good idea.
While Dan's doing that, I guess, what is the process for order of conditions with Wakefield? Do you draft something for us to review, or
Yeah.
I guess your process?
Yeah, so first step is we do want to hear back from engineering that they are, fine and okay with the responses that you submitted to them, or if they have any other comments, questions, or concerns. Yeah, when the public hearing is closed, we would start the process of drafting an order.
Okay, great.
But we'll do that in a public hearing, so.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So, so are we saying potentially we are, if engineering reviews and submits a letter and says, yep, the responses look great, we're in agreement, we're in alignment, we recommend approval, the next hearing would be talking about an order of conditions and putting that to a vote.
We would close the hearing. We would close the
Yeah,
hearing.
we have to close
next
the hearing
week.
first. And then we may or may not talk about conditions at that date, though obviously the clock is ticking at that.
Right.
Do you want to talk to Rebecca again and confirm that, her concerns have been addressed? Elaine, did you have any questions or concerns?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Yep, we want to do whatever's in the town's best interest. So, yeah, there is a preferred timeline for sure.
So Jim, here's the rendering.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if we've seen that before.
Oh, okay, nice.
This is our rendering that was submitted to the MSBA at the end of DD, and we've moved along in design since then, but this is sort of our end of DD milestone rendering that you can see how substantial it is.
Yeah, it is substantial. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You're gonna plant all the trees? That you're showing
Sorry,
here?
what was that?
You're gonna plant all those trees you're showing on the plan here?
Megan?
Yes. We have plans to plant a lot of trees. And we have, and we'll continue to discuss with the tree warden where and how large we're planting them. He has requested that we plant them 2.5-inch caliper because his experience is that they take better. And so at this point, that's what the majority of the plants of the trees that are on the project will be. And this is also the end of DD rendering as well. There have been
By BD, you mean?
Oh, design development. Sorry.
Of course, DD. The old end of DD, of course.
Yeah, sorry. You know, you do this for such a long time, you get into the lingo, and I apologize. Yeah, when we go through the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, they have their prescribed path. And so I believe that DD is the 5th stage. And so once we closed that out, this was the rendering that was delivered in the packet, the report that was delivered to MSBA.
Can I ask a question about your process for the order of conditions? Would you be developing a draft for consideration at one of your upcoming meetings? Is that how you
We'd be doing it.
you'd be doing it at the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Would the applicant, would we need to be there for that, or is it like a business?
You don't need to be there.
You
I
don't
mean,
need to be
certainly,
there, no.
obviously welcome to be there.
Can be there. So
Okay.
up to you.
I mean, it could be things that come up that you may want to comment on or say that's already included in the O&M or something to that effect, but
But if we close the public hearing, and
well, you can't accept any new information.
right, so you can clarify what was already been presented.
Right, yeah, that's why some other towns call it like a business meeting where we can attend, but we're not presenting anything.
Right.
That's why I was
Right.
just wondering.
Yeah, that's why I gave the specific example where you might say that's already in the O&M.
Right.
Okay.
It's true. That'd be very helpful.
We'll be there.
Any other questions from the commission tonight on this?
I just want to say thank you very much for a very informative discussion.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Yeah, folders were very well organized. Thank you. That's appreciated.
That's the best feedback we've gotten all night. Thank you.
I do need to ask if there's any questions from the public. I don't see any hands raised. So yeah, very well organized, and the information that we got last week or weekend was very helpful also. Getting to read the responses that you had to DEP, engineering, and conservation. Of course, it was very beneficial having Jim, join with Rebecca and yourselves at that meeting.
Excellent.
All right, anything else from the commission for tonight on this topic? Peter, anything else from you or anybody else on your side?
No, we're good. We'll be following up with Bill just to let him know what we heard here. I'm not sure if someone will also be following up with him, but we'll make sure that he gets you something.
Elaine, you'll relay that to Rebecca, right?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, we want something from Bill, just, acknowledging whether he's okay or is looking for additional information.
Great.
Yep, thank you for your time. And I know it's a lot of information in a big project, so I appreciate your attention and diligence in sticking with us.
Yeah, thank you.
One other question. How many floors was that school? Was it 3 or 2? In the drawing, I don't remember.
3, isn't it?
3.
3, sorry?
Is there a basement level? Or subgrade?
No, there can't be a basement there.
In the groundwater. Oh, you're right on the groundwater now. Yeah, right there. In the front, it could have possibly been. Yeah. All right. Anything else there from commission? All right. Well, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's not good night to the commission.
There were no public
We
people.
covered all the stuff we normally cover at the end of the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting.
Exactly. Well,
Nice.
We need to confirm that. We know Elaine's all set. But I did cut Judy off a little short. I'm not sure if she was finished.
No, I was all set. Ken sent the bylaw around, so
yes, thank you, Ken.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll
good. Thank you,
send-
Ken.
I'll send that open space bylaw and highlight the areas that I felt were deficient. So you can look at that, so you could see what could be rolled into the wetland bylaw.
Okay. I'm really enthusiastic about having, a concrete bylaw in front of us.
It's a dream come true, really.
It is. No, the dream would be that you all show up at town meeting and vote up for.
Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I know.
That would be helpful.
That
too.
is the dream.
Yeah.
Last time, but I think think Jim was the only one that showed up amongst us, and we lost like by 3 votes.
Yeah, it was bad. Yeah, it
It was
was,
painful.
yeah, it was poor. It was received poorly, I think, because people had misconceptions about it. So
Well,
this time will be
I
different.
just hope the support you mentioned, Judy, prevails and amongst the townsfolk.
I think so. And it seemed that the planning board chair was somewhat relieved that they wouldn't be having, they wouldn't be
Right.
So what were the misconceptions, and are we avoiding them this time, or how are we?
Well, the
avoiding them?
misconception, the main one was that it was going to open up, every area adjacent to any stream and river for a house basically on top of a river. Even though it was explained repeatedly that the commission still had jurisdiction and it wouldn't change anything in the way the process is run presently. You weren't going to lose anything. And that's
You're
what
right.
people thought. It was
A
going to lose.
misunderstanding of the way it would work.
Right.
Really.
Exactly. And there was a misunderstanding of how difficult it would be for the ZBA to apply this on their own without going by the commission's recommendation. I don't know how they would set a setback to a stream based on, I don't know what. And that's the problem with the open space bylaw under the planning board. There are no performance standards.
Yeah,
They don't
no.
have the background and the regulations to back them up.
So can we commit to each of us to looking at that and trying to maybe put this on the agenda for next meeting, depending on how big, how full our agenda is.
Yeah, I'm going to tell Rebecca to put it on because things have to get rolling if you're going to be
Right.
on.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Because there'll have to be a couple of public hearings and.
Yes. So thank you for bringing it up, Judy.
All right. Anything else, Judy?
No.
All right. Anybody else have anything else?
On a separate note, I would like to apologize for missing our last site visits. I ended up with a family member in the hospital and everything else kind of totally
right?
triggered. I'm so sorry.
That's reasonable.
Say the least.
Yeah.
Is everyone okay?
We're working on it. Relatively okay.
Okay.
All right.
Motion to adjourn it all, Bob?
Yes, would somebody like to make that motion to?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Ken,
Yes.
Haley,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
And
Nice
I
seeing you,
also vote
Elaine.
yes.
Yeah.